Hello viewers, welcome back to another episode of our Liberating Minds podcast. I'm your host Makanga, very glad to be here today. With us is
Sobukwe Shakura with the All African People's Revolutionary Party.
Welcome to this episode, comrade.
However, you know I'm not a stranger to this platform, and it's always great to be here with you all.
Yes, we're glad to have you. So today we are going to discuss about Amílcar Cabral. On the 12th of September this year, we shall mark 100 years since the birth of Amílcar Cabral. Amílcar Cabral is significant in our history as African people, but is also significant in our analysis of our global situation as well as our local situation as we continue with our quest for liberation. So we're going to have this episode in commemoration of Amílcar Cabral, but also to ask ourselves certain questions as regard the significance of Amílcar Cabral. With us is Sobukwe Shakura, who will help us to answer some of these important questions. So, Comrade Sobukwe, who is Amílcar Cabral and why is he significant?
That question could be answered for all night. We could talk about the significance of his contributions. But I want to talk, maybe first start with my own experiences with Amílcar Cabral's thought and its far-reaching influences on the world. I was born on January 20th. January 20th, 1973 was when Cabral was assassinated. Okay. I didn't know who Cabral was. And of course, I was a baby. So in 1957. But Cabral's first real conscious influence on me was in 1973. I was a high school student, and we were getting conscious about the liberation struggles in Africa. And at the time, on the college campuses, there were struggles against Portuguese colonialism. The college students were organizing boycotts against Portuguese goods, and we participated in those boycotts, and we participated in all of the programming, marches, and everything against the Portuguese. Again, at this point, I didn't understand who Cabral was. I only understood that we were fighting against Portuguese colonialism, and that was one of my conscious understandings. Later, I would find out about Cabral through my interaction with the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And I became very conscious of the contributions that Cabral had made to the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Because Cabral, at the time, when the APRP was being born in 1968, was coming back and forth from Guinea-Bissau to Guinea-Conakry, where their base was. Again, they had a safe space in Guinea-Conakry. At that time also, Kwame Nkrumah was in Guinea-Conakry. After he was overthrown by the CIA, Kwame Nkrumah was given co-presidency in Guinea-Conakry with Sekou Touré, and Nkrumah being the only person to be president of two African states. But the importance is that Nkrumah at the time was rewriting the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. The handbook had been started in Ghana before he was overthrown. His enemies, the CIA, seized and destroyed the book, but he continued to put this book together. The significance of this book is this book was a piece of work trying to bring the political parties and the political revolutionary organizations, national liberation struggles together under one political party. And to put forth strategies not only on the question of political leadership, but how to conduct armed struggle. who defining how these forces and defining all the forces in the field and how they should come together. The significance of this is that Cabral's presence in Guinea gave Nkrumah's book even more life because he was involved in the armed struggle. He had already started Concept, the organization that brought together the liberation forces in Angola, Mozambique, and Guinea-Bissau. This experience of uniting armed struggle, putting together a liberation force over a geographical space that was larger than just one state in Africa, he could add and help Nkrumah better define this work in the book, the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. So when we think about this, his contributions went far beyond the place of just his struggle and the struggle of the people in Guinea-Bissau. It was on a Pan-African scale, and then we know it was also on an international scale. Because Cabral, when he participated in Tricontinental Conference, the conference that took place in the early 60s, and brought together forces from Africa, Asia, and Latin America to talk about how they can coordinate their struggles. It's there that he made one of probably the most significant speech at the conference, when he talked about that the struggle, the people's struggle, could not just be defined in terms of a discussion of what you're against and just throwing insults at the enemy. He said one of the biggest weaknesses in our struggle for national liberation is ideology, clear direction. What are we fighting for? Because you can't win. You can't win a revolutionary struggle unless you are clear on where you're going. He said that there's been many revolutions or revolutionary attempts that have failed. But he said there has never been a revolutionary attempt that has succeeded without revolutionary ideology. So it became very clear. It became very clear that his thought processes, his revolutionary ideas impacted not only revolution, like I said, in Guinea-Bissau and the African continent, but in the global sense. So I think that it's hard to underestimate how much that he gave to this struggle in his short life. You know, because you said he was born in 1924 and he died in 1973. He was assassinated. But we know that he not only left us the lore around his revolutionary contributions, but he also wrote down in many speeches, and he has books we can read, we can study him. When we look at the book that was consolidated called Africa in Unity, you can see many of his speeches not only on the level of theory, but you can also read his speeches on actual practice in the revolutionary process. You can look at the questions of how he dealt with understanding things like speeches he wrote to the enemy, explaining to the enemy why they shouldn't be fighting, why they shouldn't be giving their lives for imperialism, talking about things like, even back then, like NATO and the role of NATO, and that they were, and making it clear that they were not only fighting the Portuguese colonialism, that they were fighting NATO, because Portugal on its own probably could not have even held Guinea-Bissau for so long. NATO was the one, the same North Atlantic Treaty Organization that is trying to destroy Russia behind Ukraine. They were behind the Portuguese, the colonialists. They were helping them, transporting their troops. They were helping them with military intelligence, with military hardware. They were helping them to keep this colony in check, to hold on to the colony, although they were unsuccessful. And I think that that's the thing that we have to understand, that the idea of something like these forces, we have to understand the convergence of these forces. And that goes back to what he really contributed. He contributed an understanding of imperialism that was not just the struggles that we were fighting against in national liberation, the force like Portugal or France or whatever. They were backed by bigger forces, the forces of imperialism across the world, like the tool NATO.